All right. Hello, everyone. We're a couple minutes late, but welcome to the March 22nd live stream. And for this live stream, we do have a guest. He's kind of getting ready. He's trying to find a headphone or something to address his audio problems. But right now, I have our some of our regulars, Steve-O, John, and Neil. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Howdy, everybody.
Hi-yo.
Hey.
John, you're muted.
And Nuke may be just a little bit
Hey-yo.
running a little bit late. So to start off, John, you had some announcements about your father.
Yeah. So over the last few weeks, he has been using parallel bars, but he has been walking on his own. So he is up and somewhat mobile now, which he's taking a few steps. He's able to get about maybe 10 feet or so before he's got to sit down and relax. Sorry about that background noise. But he's feeling a lot better. They are talking about seeing if he's going to be coming home sometime in the next month or so. So great improvements. I've been passing along everybody's well wishes, and he wants to pass along to you guys how much he really appreciates the fact that you guys are all rooting for him.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. So it's just really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's how long has it been now?
So the fall that initiated all of this happened about 3 days before Christmas.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's been like 3 months.
Yeah. So when you get to a certain age, falls have more of an impact. That which is just kind of the lesson out of all of this. So
yeah.
Take care of your joints.
No, but it's good to hear that your dad's doing well.
Yeah. So he's coming along. He's feeling pretty good. And he's just like I said, every day he's moving along a little bit better.
Excellent.
Sorry if you can hear that.
And what was that?
Oh, that's dinner. Sorry.
Okay.
That's forgivable. You're trying to get something to eat.
And Blarg unfortunately was able to get on. I try not to send him the link.
Oh no!
He got it anyway.
He made it though. That's all good. It's all good.
You had one job.
G'day all.
Hey Blarg. Hey Tuna. Yeah, sorry, Blarg. I know I sent the email kind of late, so.
Yeah, I just see it there now. But that's all right.
It takes a while to get to Australia. The
well, yeah.
Swallow takes a while to fly it all the way over there.
They've got to run it through that upside down conversion utility to get the text up the right way.
Well, and also it's, it was a laden swallow with the coconut, so that's why it took a while.
Well,
wait, was it African or European?
African, of course.
Wait,
how can a European swallow carry?
We were having a funny little conversation last night. Actually, went out for dinner with a friend of ours, and we're talking about what movie gets quoted the most. And African or European was definitely one of the quotes that came up there. But we were trying to decide whether it was Major Payne. It's one of those movies that you're kind of a bit embarrassed about liking, but it's ludicrously quotable.
Oh yeah.
So Major Payne's pretty quotable. Monty Python's pretty quotable.
What is a quote from Major Payne?
Lots of ones like I'm sorry, Mr. Handicapped Man. I didn't mean to offend you. And
Pain is my business, and business is good.
Yes.
Yeah, and the scene where he shaves the kid and the dog.
Oh yeah, the very end. Oh yes.
Now it's not Major Payne, but I have on many occasions, unironically, told one of my partners, "As you wish."
Yeah. Actually, apparently the scene with Billy Crystal in that movie it took them days to film that one short scene because the director basically told him, do whatever you want.
Yep.
And,
nope, yeah,
and
Rob
then
Reiner.
and then they had to evacuate. Like the director couldn't even be in the same room with them. They all had to sit up in a tent way up the way because they were laughing too hard that they kept ending up in the audio.
Yep. So then I've also I was in a sales meeting once, and this was back when I was a mortgage broker, and I was being rewarded. I was being spoken about quite favorably in the weekly meeting because I had this real take no prisoners attitude amongst my clients. And I said, well, a mortgage broker can't afford to take any prisoners. Once word gets around that he's gone soft, people start disobeying orders, and that's just work all the time.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the Major Payne quote, so that's why I was a little bit.
You must
in the
watch
dark.
that movie, or we will find you and we'll make you watch it.
Yeah, it's a terrible movie, but it's also it's one of those embarrassing enjoyments.
It's a guilty pleasure.
Yes, it is very much so.
All right. Okay, so I don't know if our guest was able to find a headphone. Hey, Greg, are you there?
I'm still trying to hook up with these hearing aids. I don't know.
Okay, it's
maybe a
actually
short trip here.
it's better. But while you're getting ready, why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then once you're ready, you can introduce yourself to us. And so, just for you guys' information, T-Grog is from Twitter, and we had been on a few exchanges. So he had given me a couple of links to precept arguments. So I had invited him to come on, and we can talk about precepts. So why don't we just go in turn and kind of introduce everyone to T-Grog? Steve-O, why don't you go first?
Hey, my name is Steve, but I've got to go by Steve-O. I'm an atheist, like probably everybody else here, except for Neil. I have a background in sociology, but even though I didn't finish college due to financial issues, but I do have an idea of how, logic works in terms of social scenes. Yes, so that's pretty much it. Why do I get this feeling of dread all of a sudden?
Y'all okay?
Yep. All right. I'll jump in. I'm Glenn. I usually go by Blarg, but I'm an Australian along with Ook, and it's a lovely time to be joining in over here, middle of the day. Yes, I have a background in engineering and physics, and been an atheist all my life, even having gone to a Catholic school. It's me. Come on, John. You're it.
All right. So, hi, my name is John Clark. Educationally, my background started out in poli-sci and mathematics, but my professional career has almost been exclusively in the field of client relations and sales and marketing. I've been an atheist for many, many years now. Started out as a devout Christian. Grew up in the Disciples of Christ Church. But now see myself as an atheist, and would also the term I've heard a lot is ichtheist, which is basically just the concept of God. Just logically makes no sense. People can't even come to a concise definition of what God even is, and so from that, it's impossible to have any kind of meaningful conversation about the existence of something that you can't even define. So that's kind of the elevator pitch version for me. Who's next?
That'd be me then.
Yes.
I'm Neil. I'm the token theist, as I call myself, on the panel. My background is in science, but most of my work has been in the sort of public/governmental sphere.
Okay,
And
and then I'll go.
Okay.
All right, and I'll go last. T-Grog, you've seen my post on Twitter. I have an undergrad in philosophy, but I've gone to graduate school in molecular biology, so I have background in the biological science as well. I'm not in research. I'm in kind of IT management space. But being online on social media, like on YouTube and Twitter, has kind of afforded me a chance to kind of stretch some of my philosophy muscles as I go against some of the fallacies I see from specifically from Christians, but any theists. But I've been atheist for a while, but relatively recently, I'll say within a few years, as I started watching The Atheist Experience, I've taken more of a hardline stance on atheism, and is more of a hard atheist, meaning that I specifically don't believe any gods exist. So that's me. If you want to, if you're ready, T-Grog,
I can talk. I don't know. I haven't fixed the whole problem with, with headphones and stuff. I don't know if it's going to be too distracting for you guys, but
it's not too bad. Go ahead.
okay. I'm probably a lot older than anybody here. I'm 71. So I grew up kind of a nominal Catholic, and then when I was in high school, I had a conversion experience. So I was a Christian, hardcore Christian, from about 1972 to 1982, maybe 83. So I had experience with a lot of different varieties of Christianity: charismatic Christianity, Baptist. I grew up Catholic, as I said. And I was a Six-Day Creationist. I knew and met a lot of people in the apologetics community back then, including some of the big name presuppositionalists like Greg Bahnsen. Then I met R.C. Sproul. I met John Gerstner. I met John Whitcomb, who co-wrote the book with Henry Morris on the Genesis flood. So I was a pretty hardcore believer, Christian nationalist, Reconstructionist. So, I was really all into it. And what happened was I just started reading the Bible in depth, and in talking to one of my friends who was a good friend of mine, who was a Christian apologist, kind of a mid-level apologist. His name was Dr. Robert A. Morey. He's dead now. But just talking to him, you kind of see how the sausage is made. And for a while there, I was considering going to Westminster Seminary, and I had a really great job in the real estate business. I was a real estate broker for many years, and he told me not to do it because he said one of the quickest ways to become a non-believer is to go to seminary, because of the things you see there and the things you learn about scriptures and how things really operate. But I've been interested in this because I see the hate-filled, since I've left Christianity, I see how sick it can twist somebody's mind and make them a very hateful, nasty individual, as I was. I was a Calvinist. I was a 5-point Calvinist. But reading the Bible really got me out of it. I mean, reading the Bible in depth and really thinking about it and trying to come to trying to harmonize all these different ideas. And I got exposed to presuppositionalism because my buddy Bob, he was a graduate of Westminster Seminary. So I started reading Van Til and another presuppositionalist who has a different approach, Gordon Clark. And I just, eventually first of all, I couldn't understand what the hell Van Til was saying half the time, right? He's a poor writer, and he's making it, but really my biggest thing, and this is why I harp on this on Twitter, is the Bible is the Achilles heel here. Okay. Because the Bible makes claims that are clearly false, and we can show that they're false. When you get into all this philosophizing and all this shit, it depends on all these assumptions you bring to the table and all these intuitions and all this other stuff. So I try and approach it from, hey, this is what the text says, and then science says otherwise. The text says everything was created in 6 days, 24-hour days. There's a dome over the earth with stars and the moon and the sun and the planets and everything else in this dome. And that's clearly false. Precepts, I think, are people who are generally ignorant, and precept gives a cover to their ignorance, and they can just say, well, I just presuppose it. And what I find hilarious about that is now other people are picking up on that. Muslims are picking up on it. Mormons are picking up on it. Eastern Orthodox are picking up on it. They just say, well, I just presuppose, without my God, you can't know anything. You can't even talk, So it's kind of a joke. I think it's kind of the last stand of Christianity, because they've given up evidence. They've given up any kind of evidential support for their religion. And basically, I call it spirit channeling. They're channeling a spirit. This spirit talks to them and gives them infallible knowledge, they think. And so that's the retrograde thing we're dealing with here. We're dealing with superstition all the way down. So that's kind of my story.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating, especially with Greg. Whoop, did we lose someone?
And he's back. Oh, that's Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Switching out his avatar.
All right. Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. I do like your comment about how going to seminary is probably a quick road to atheism. One of the, I think, up and coming YouTubers in this the anti-apologetic space is the channel is called the Deconstruction Zone with Justin, and he's been in not seminary, but he's I think he has degrees in theology, and he's studied the Bible extensively. He knows Greek and Hebrew and all that, and yeah, he goes really hard at the issues in the Bible, specifically pointing out. And for him, his journey was that when it got to the point where he realized that Jesus doesn't fulfill any of the messianic prophecies, it was clear to him that Christianity cannot be true. And then he also had I think started as being a strong Christian. But yeah, the Bible really, I mean, if you look at it without the whole confirmation bias and cherry picking, it's so very clear that it doesn't make sense. It's not, to use a term that's used by one of the other kind of a biblical content creator on YouTube, Dan McClellan, it's not univocal. There is no one voice that's consistent throughout the work. It's, hodgepodge of different stories put together, and anyone can make it say anything. So if you are for slavery, you can make it say it's for slavery. If you're against slavery, you can make it say it's against slavery. It can be misogynistic. It can be, I guess, liberal. So it can be a lot of things. And it all just becomes kind of a proof text for someone to essentially use it to create authority for their own personal beliefs, their own personal biases. So if you are anti-homosexual, you can say that you are that way, not because you are a bigot, but because the Bible says so, and you can't go against the Bible. So I agree with you in terms of kind of how it's possible to be kind of very a hate-filled person and use the Bible, but I don't necessarily want to say that it's the faith that makes excuse me, that's causing that. I mean, the hate and all that is kind of just being justified, and it doesn't have to be the Bible that drives it. It can be anything. So I think it's all just kind of
it is a little bit driven
yeah.
by that what do you call it, the issue they have with trying to defend something they believe but they also know is simultaneously problematic. So when this gets pointed out, they sort of back into a corner and get their back up, and it does create a level of angst at the very least, if not pushing them all the way to hate. But it makes it easy to start the path towards hate of people who might question the stuff that you're not allowed to question. So
yeah, I guess the point I was trying to get at is I think it's very possible for you to be a Christian and or be a good person, and I even think that you can be a Muslim and be a good person.
All
really
the Muslims I've ever met have been the sweetest, nicest people, just without doubt. There's just all of the ones, which of course isn't all of the Muslims, but I'm probably lucky to where I live because in our where I am, the Muslims don't tend to be fundamentalists. They just tend to be, fairly easygoing, regular people.
I'm just speaking from my own experience. That's what I'm telling you. If you believe that your relatives and everybody you know that doesn't think the way you do is going to eternal hellfire, you have to have a kind of a very cruel, hateful mindset to believe that.
And I'll add narcissism into that too as well.
Yeah, of course, because you're one of the elect.
I do love the narcissistic angle, though, because they accuse atheists of putting ourselves above God, that we consider ourselves the ultimate, and thus we're super narcissistic. And you just go, let's just have a look at the fact that you think you've got a supernatural being who looks out for you all day, every day, and you're special. You're more special than everything else in existence, and all of existence was created just for you. And you think, it's a bit rich to be calling us narcissistic.
Yeah, the irony, of course, is that if you were going to be created in the mind of God, God knew He was going to create you. You're kind of a necessary being, just like God, right? I mean, these are the paradoxes of theistic belief that are endlessly fascinating. I'm also endlessly fascinated by the disagreements between Christians. Like if you look at the split between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, the East and West, fascinating stuff. I mean, these people are fighting over, the filioque and the essence energy distinction and God and all these other crazy things. They're just made up. They're literally made up. And
hilarious.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
you only have to hear them talk about, how to get salvation, and they can't agree on the threefold division that they usually bring up, which is like grace, faith, and works. And none of them can agree on what mix gets them to heaven. But they're all
Well,
adamant that their version of Christianity has got it right.
Well, that
Then
was
you've
another
got-
thing. Yeah, excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then you've got doing the sign of the cross, which some people will do up, down, left, right, and others will do up, down, right, left. And you will burn in hell forever if you get that wrong.
Oh God, that's so
It's a
true.
good, so it's a good thing that your God, that you picked the right God, and they told you the right way.
Yeah, that was another thing that pushed me out of Christian belief was the disagreements. And I went through a struggle that was a really big struggle in the late 70s and early 80s. It was called the Lordship Salvation controversy in evangelicalism. It's kind of died down now. But in other words, do you have to accept Jesus as your Lord as well as your Savior in order to be saved? And you had people with multiple graduate degrees in theology, in philosophy, in New Testament studies, and they're fighting about this, okay? In other words, there are people like the Grace Evangelical Society is one of them that I follow, that say all you have to do is believe in this proposition. Jesus rose from the dead and he's my Savior, and I accept it. All you have to do is that, and you can do anything you want. You could kill people, become Genghis Khan, whatever. You're still saved, but you're going to live in the slums of heaven. See, you're not going to get rewards. All right. There's other people that say, wait a minute, you can't do that. You're not really saved, and blah, blah, blah. So what blew me away is here's people who studied the Bible all their lives at a professional level, and they cannot agree. They cannot agree. What does that tell you? It tells me that either the Bible's contradictory or it's just contradictory. There's contradictory models of salvation found in Scripture. And so, of course, it's irreconcilable. So that indicates this is a human product, not a divine product. Right? So
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, go ahead, Q.
Yeah, so the topic of discussion that we were going to have was in regard to the presuppositionalism. And it was interesting to hear that you've met Greg Bahnsen. What was he like?
I went and saw, he did a series on prophecy at a church near me, and it was a very small Presbyterian church. So I sat in the front row and we chatted a bit, but very smart guy. But he's arguing for post-millennialism or something like that. But the problem is, of course, I met smart people who argued for premillennialism, and I met smart people who argued for amillennialism, and I met smart people who argued for preterism.
Can you give a little explanation of each of those?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
some of those?
Well, in premillennialism, if you read the book of Revelation, it says, after 1,000 years, Satan is bound for 1,000 years. And premillennialists believe that there's differences, obviously, because believe me, nobody agrees on all this stuff. But premillennialists read the Bible. They pride themselves on reading the Bible in the historical, grammatical sense. So when the Bible talks about Israel in the Hebrew Bible, that's Israel. It's not the church. It's not the future church. It's literal Israel. So all these promises that are made to literal Israel that have not come true will come true in the millennial reign of Christ. And so there's going to be, Christ is going to return, and there's going to be 1,000-year reign of Christ, and then Satan's going to be loosed for some reason. Nobody really understands why. And then there's going to be the consummation of the ages and the great white throne judgment and the final judgment of everybody and whatnot. So that's premillennialism. Amillennialism says, well, the 1,000 years is symbolic. Israel has been replaced by the true Israel of God, the Christian church. And so we have to interpret the Bible the way the apostles did, see. So there's a new hermeneutic that's introduced. In other words, the New Testament authors govern the interpretation of the Hebrew Bible. They govern their what they say governs how the Hebrew Bible is interpreted. And same with postmillennialism. Postmillennialism basically says the prophecies in Daniel will come true in the church. It's the stone cut without human hands that smashes the nations of the earth and grows to fill the whole world. I'm paraphrasing. And so basically the Christian church is eventually going to take over the whole earth, and then Jesus will return. So those are different types of prophetic ideas. And then there's preterism. Preterism says Jesus promised to return, but it was symbolic. He returned in 70 AD to judge Israel, and all these things he promised would happen. It's apocalyptic language. The sun went dark metaphorically. There was terrible things happening metaphorically, and it's apocalyptic language. So there's all these different crazy interpretations of the same book. And I noticed that too when I was a prophetic nut. I used to study prophecy all the time. Finally, I got so sick of it. I used to get migraines studying this stuff. And so finally I just took all the books I had on prophecy and put them in a box and put tape over it and said, I'm not going to look at that shit anymore. It's giving me agina. So yeah, so that's the explanation of the different
I
views.
can't imagine what it's like to have that type of belief, right? That type of apocalyptic belief, and to actually think that it's concrete and it's something that's going to imminently happen, right?
Yes, I agree. It's bizarre.
And it's always been, and there's been so many people who have said, oh, the apocalypse is going to be at this so-and-so date, and it never turns out to be the case, obviously. And then afterwards, they spout that Matthew line about, well, no man can know the hour and the time, but that doesn't stop the next person from saying that, oh, we know when it is going to happen.
Well, Jesus says no man knows the day or the hour, but he doesn't say no man knows the generation.
Yeah.
He also says this generation.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's always this
So
generation.
it's not the day or the hour, but it's this generation. See,
You gotta love how
And-
vague they like to keep everything so that way they can.
well,
could just
that's the slipperiness of biblical language. Day doesn't mean day. It means something else. Just reinterpreting these words. Mormons do the same thing. I mean, their latest thing is. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just wanted to, because we didn't introduce Greg Bahnsen, but I think the presuppositionalism really started with Van Til, who kind of developed the theology or / philosophy of it. But Greg
Van
Bahnsen
Til-
is the one who popularized it in the U.S.
Yeah, my hypothesis, well, it's from the Dutch Reformed tradition, and actually, I think earlier people started it over in Europe, but Van Til picked it up because, quite frankly, 19th century apologetics failed. 19th century apologetics was evidentialist, and it failed. And also, Van Til was enough of a good philosopher. He went to Princeton. That he knew these theistic arguments, the Thomistic theistic arguments, failed. So, you're kind of left with, oh, well, what do we do now? well, we'll make this argument that, and it's based, that's another thing, it's all based on the Bible. Okay. In Romans 1, it said everybody knows God. See, Romans 1. And so everybody knows God. So, hey, the Bible says it. Everybody knows God. So everybody in this chat room knows God. We know it's true. We're just so evil. We're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. See? So it's all true, and we all know it's true. But so it's based off this Romans 1 shtick. And Van Til, it's basically, for me, it's just asserting things without any evidence. In other words, I'm presupposing that my particular God is the source of knowledge, morals, science, rationality. You just say shit like that. There's nothing. They don't actually make an argument. They just say it. So I always thought it was very strange. I just thought it's like you're giving up. You say, well, there isn't really evidence that's going to convince a non-believer. Why are they non-believers? If there's all this evidence, why? Well, as a Calvinist, Van Til would say, well, they're not the elect. See, so that's another way to explain it. That God just has deluded them. And so you have this crazy argument. It's totally circular. You're assuming the Bible's true, and then it's assuming it to prove it, to assume it. And it's absurd, really. So
it's called the transcendental argument for God, or the tag, as people like to call it. And the source is, it has kind of a base in Kant's transcendentalism. And in Kant's transcendentalism, he's trying to figure out what are the necessary preconditions of knowledge. And his idea is that it's the mind, the reason, that actually imposes a certain category. He calls it a priori category, meaning that even without experience, these things are there. And these things are like causality, time, space, etc. And these are what makes knowledge possible and actually makes experience possible. So this idea of this transcendental categories, that you don't have to, but it's presupposed, it's kind of built in to the as a part of our a precondition for intelligibility, and that's how kind of Van Til took that and said, well, instead of like assuming it's reason, because obviously that's wrong because you're depending on man, it's not reason, but it's God, and so it's God that is the precondition for intelligibility, and so he kind of adopts this Kant's transcendentalism and says that, well, it can't be human reason. It must be God, obviously from the Bible. And he says that God is necessary as a foundation for basic knowledge, including logic, morality, and uniformity of nature. And so that's where the transcendentalism comes. But whereas Kant, creates this whole base of, these a priori categories. I mean, like he has a whole book, the pure condition, the critique of pure reason, and it's a thick book, and he goes through a lot of it. And so he kind of creates this base, but this tag argument is basically saying, well, you just have to assume God, because without God you can't have knowledge or logic and all that, and that's where the circularity comes from, right? You presuppose the God that you're using to prove the God. And that's where the argument of circularity comes from.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. There are different kinds of presuppositionalism. Someone you guys may not be familiar with, but I was, because I read a lot of his books. Gordon Clark. He went to Penn. He got his doctorate at Penn. He taught at a secular university for many years, Butler University. And his presuppositionalism was quite a bit different than Van Til's. He just said the Bible's the Word of God, the Protestant Bible, of course, and that's it. So that's what I presuppose, and blah and they actually had a big fight. Clark and Van Til. There was a big split. Van Til tried to get Clark kicked out of the Presbyterian Church, and because there were all these arguments about God and the Trinity, and Clark didn't believe God was infinite, for example. So these precepts, it's just funny that they have this kind of interscene debate going on. Christians, if you guys are on Twitter, I assume, they'll fight about anything. They're fighting all the time. It's like, oh, the Virgin Mary, she had other babies, and oh, she didn't. You're blaspheming. It's amazing. It's just so there was this actual split there. The Clark Van Til controversy. You can look it up. I agree with you. He bases a lot of his stuff on Immanuel Kant, and but unlike Kant, who separated faith from reason, I believe Kant thought that belief in God was part of practical reason, not pure reason.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of Christians have criticized Van Til about that because they said, well, your Van Til's system tends toward pantheism. That for reasons I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's very interesting. I can tell you that from reading Van Til that I've read, Why I Believe in God, and a couple other books that I have. He's a shitty writer, and you really don't know. I mean, it's really hard to figure out what the hell he's talking about. Okay.
I mean, he seems like kind of a bad thinker as well. By the way, I know you've been putting some messages in the private chat. I mean, you can't just put it into the comments section so that other people can
Sorry
see
about
it.
that.
So, yeah, no worries. I wasn't sure if you knew because
I'm new to this.
I know that this. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just like the more I kind of hear about his arguments, it just seems like it's not very clear thinking. It seems like it's so obvious that it's circular. So are you in like any of like the YouTube stuff? Do you watch any of the YouTube atheist channels or Christian channels?
I watch. I've been watching. I'm a member of the channel of the Deconstruction Zone.
Oh,
because
okay,
I think
cool.
that's one of the most effective ways to deal with these people, because there are things said in the scriptures that are wrong, that are hateful, and you can pin them down on it. Unlike this philosophical stuff, which is all over the map. I mean, I watch Jim Bob once in a while. He's a pre-supper, and he's just asserting things. Well, you can't accept logic. You can't accept reason. You can't accept this. You can't accept that. It's just these ridiculous talking points that he just keeps repeating them, and it's not an argument. And everybody here should know this. Most Christian apologists are not presuppositionalists. Okay, it's a minority view. Okay, there's a lot of Christians who are not presuppositionalists, so they think it's
wait. So I think that there are a lot that are not formally a precept, but a lot of their arguments ultimately kind of go down into sort of a precept category, without them maybe meaning it to.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, you have to. I mean, if you go back to some of the people, it's because the Bible says so, then it must be, it's got to be real or something. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Well, in Matthew it says this. Well, in Luke it says this. Well, okay. So what?
And then you get the people then you get the people who pop in and who say, complain about us quoting the Bible. You go, you don't believe it. you don't believe the Bible, so why are you quoting the Bible to me? And it's one of those moments where you feel a little bit like banging your head against a wall.
Well, you're showing
'Cause-
that it's inconsistent. It says things that don't make sense. In other words, when it says in Genesis that everything was created in 6 days, evening and morning. I used to be a 6-day creationist. I got a funny story about that too. This will make my whole appearance here. I was vice president of the Bible Science Association. I was president of it in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I grew up. And I knew a guy who was a creationist guy. He was a Lutheran, Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. His name was, trying to think of his name now. It'll come to me. But he's the president of the Bible Science Association. Walter Lang, that was his name, Walter Lang. And I sponsored him to come to my church and talk about creationism. And he was in this men's group that we were sitting in, about 30, 40 guys. And he said in this speech, he said, well, Bigfoot is real. And I think they're the descendants of Cain. And we should send missionaries out to Bigfoot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I almost burst out laughing. I mean, I go, this is so crazy. I can't even believe.
What does that mean? Sending missionaries out to Bigfoot?
Because they need to be saved. They need to hear about Jesus.
But how would you find them?
Well, look, I didn't ask any follow-up questions because the whole room was like stunned.
I am. I know I am.
Everybody's like, "What?" It's like, I go, man. I brought this guy in here. How embarrassing! This guy's he's crazy. We got to send missionaries to Bigfoot.
What? There's no group they will not proselytize to. Wow.
The problem is that people confuse Bigfoot with Sasquatch, yet he doesn't mind.
Right. Yeah, they're different.
Yeti doesn't mind.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's John was trying to make a joke.
Trying to
Yeah.
figure out the word, but maybe not succeeding.
yeah, that one kind of fell a little flat there.
No, it's my favorite. I don't want to say gotcha moment, but whenever I'm talking to creationists and they love saying, well, you can't have something from nothing. All right, cool. When your God created reality, where did he get the materials? And then definitely that stunned silence, because apparently that happened on this channel when I asked that question of, I don't think it was Diva. Do you remember who it was that I had that conversation that we had that conversation with?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past it to be.
Wasn't
would
that the
be
one you
Diva.
actually blew up on him on?
No. That was the one where he was perfectly fine with families being ripped apart.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was months later.
Okay.
No,
That's
so,
before I came along.
Diva is fundamentally dishonest. Anyway, that's sort of my favorite question to ask creationists is, if you can't have something from nothing, then where do the materials come from to create the universe? And
So
go ahead.
T. Greg, I'll just give you a little more background on this channel. So all of us here have really been on the comment section in the YouTube channel, the Atheist Experience YouTube channel. So we've had a lot of kind of conversations, or not conversations, but
Right.
comments back and forth with different Christians who would essentially go there to just troll or just spam
Right.
things.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what happened was one of the commenters started saying, this guy named the Monkey Boy, or we like to call him the Monkey Boy. Hold on.
Laugh a while you can, monkey boy.
So he was going around challenging the atheists to say, well, I've done a whole bunch of in real life debates. I challenge you to in real life debates, and so that's where I had kind of created this YouTube channel, or used this YouTube channel to kind of set it up as initially a debate platform, but it kind of turned out to be kind of this discussion platform where we kind of discuss various topics. But
Sure.
it really started with talking about kind of a lot of the fallacious arguments that you see in these comments, and of course you see that on Twitter as well. But yeah, it was kind of as a response to that. So a lot of us are just kind of familiar with some of the characters from those comments, and Diva is one of them, and there's kind of like a guy named Flojo and a few others. So I have this here to if any of those guys actually wanted to have a discussion, like have a real civil discussion on things, that they could come on and talk to us. But generally what happens is a lot of those guys are essentially keyboard warriors, and I see that on Twitter as well, where they'll say whatever in comments or on tweets, but when you get them to, hey, all right, let's actually discuss this, because I don't want to go to like a 20 layer seat back and forth on some idiotic point, and then when I invite them to come on, they pretty much seem to disappear. They make up a bunch of excuses to say that they don't, just a bunch of excuses to just not show up. So it's very rare that we actually get like a Christian or a theist to come on, but we do get some, and we've had pretty good conversations with Christians and theists on here. But it's fairly rare that I get people accepting my challenge.
Well, it's fascinating. Christianity is fascinating. It's more fascinating since I'm not a believer, because you can see sociologically and anthropologically how it evolves and changes through history. And I've been interacting a lot with this group. It's called This Little Corner, TLC. They call it the Estuary. And these people are all over the map. I mean, some people are Jordan Peterson, fanatics. Other people they're into symbolism. Everything's a symbol. Then there are people who are universalists, and all this. It's crazy. But I do talk to those people from time to time, and it's nice to talk to universalistic Christians, because they think you're ultimately going to go to heaven anyway. So, they're not as mean. So, but it's amazing how it morphs and changes with culture. It's a cultural phenomenon, and that's why I still have an interest in it, because it's amazing. I mean, it's obviously shaped human history in many, many, many diverse ways, and it's fascinating. It's like some people study spiders, right? I study this because I was a type of one, and it's a fascinating conceptual scheme. That's what I'll say.
So do you know that a blogger, that Bunsen Burner blogger, or that's not you, right?
I've been following him for 20 years. I mean, he's been doing this for years and years. That's all he does is presuppositionalism. That's it. I mean, yeah, I read his stuff frequently. He's an objectivist. He's a Randian type dude, which I don't agree with, but he has a lot of good insights about presuppositionalism and how goofy it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I used to be into Ayn Rand for a while. Then I graduated
Right.
college.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's pretty hardcore objectivist, I think. So take that into consideration.
So, have you had run-ins with Darth Dawkins?
I never spoke with Darth Dawkins. I happen to think that, I don't know Darth personally, but I know that one of the reasons I got into Christianity was because of my own psychological problems growing up and whatever. And I think some of these people have, they've kind of got to screw loose, and they need help. They need therapeutic interventions, like I did, because what they're saying, it doesn't make any sense, and it's a dead end way to think. Thinking God's thoughts after him. That was one of the mantras that when I was a Van Tillian, they think God. How do you do that? How do you know you're thinking God's thoughts after him? I mean, it's like pray without ceasing, right? How the hell can you do that? Pray without ceasing. What? I mean, it's kind of a mind virus. I know that's cliche, but it's kind of like that. It's running in the background of your head. And I think the Deconstruction Zone has the right approach. You just go Bible, 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 because these as he calls them, philosophy bros, you can presuppose anything as your God and say, well, that's the basis of all knowledge, morals, rationality, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it just doesn't work. And it's stupid. Frankly, I just think it doesn't make any sense to me as an outsider now. I suppose it did as when I was in it, but it makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that Darth has some psychological issues. I mean, I don't want to try to diagnose him, but I mean, there's a lot of anger and a lot of narcissism in the way he carries on and the way he deals with people.
I'm not trying to diagnose anybody, just speaking for myself. When you grow up in a chaotic environment, home environment like I did, you need certainty. See, your brain wants certainty. And so you latch on to these religions because they allegedly provide, hey, this is how you live. This is what you do. This is, it's very it's like the military. It's a regimented system. And you say, this is how you do it and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I'm not diagnosing them either. I'm speaking only for myself.
Well, not only does it provide you with the comfort of certainty that God is telling you what to do and how to do it, but there's the added layer of, and by the way, all those people who've made fun of you, all of those people that acted like they were smarter than you, they're all going to burn in hell. So ultimately, you're going to be proven right and they're going to be proven wrong. Just wait. There's a sense of justice in the eye of the person believing that. So there's a God, I'm scrambling for words right now, but the idea is that because God has told you what to do and how to do it, you have a sense of purpose, but then there's also that ultimate sense of justice as well. Since you can't do it for yourself, God's going to be able to do it for you. So it's the ultimate outsourcing of power and identity.
Well, I think there's an element too of resentment. Like Nietzsche said, it's like, oh, the wisdom of the world, they think they're smarter, but really, I've got the inside scoop here because I know the Lord, it's sick. It's a sick mindset. Not everybody is sick. Okay, not everybody is mean like I was, but if you really believe this crazy stuff that's in the Bible and in theology, I just posted something on Twitter, about God laughing at people and mocking them, and ridiculing them as he's destroying them. See, if you really read that stuff and you get that mindset, it's a sickness. It really is. I don't know how else to characterize it. It's pathetic and sad. So.
Well, and it comes from short-circuiting the critical thinking skills of the believer. That's kind of how you get them caught into the web of that presupposition, that feedback loop that ultimately results in them being able to then turn around and be a keyboard warrior on YouTube or Twitter or wherever. I've yet to find a fundamentalist. I've yet to see a keyboard warrior that didn't show signs of being a victim of the BITE model for a cult. I know it's a bit reductionist to say this, but I mean, just about every theist that I've ever met, either as a presuppositionalist and or a BITE victim. I mean, T. Grog, do you have a different experience on that?
Yeah. Well, I would say this, that there were extremes of Christian belief that I encountered that I never really could completely buy into. For a while there was this thing that you should have a spiritual father to guide you and all this stuff. And of course, what I saw happening in the evangelical church was these predators would come in and say, "Hey, I want to be your spiritual father." But I had gained enough critical thinking skills to say, well, I don't really need a spiritual father. God is my father, right? I mean, if God wants to tell me something, let him tell me directly, not through you. See? So I didn't retain this kind of residual skeptical approach. Like, I didn't really believe that we should send missionaries to Bigfoot, for example.
Well, yeah, sure.
So, but there are people that, there's a lot of victimization in evangelical churches of people because of their naivete and their lack of, they're too trusting. They're too trusting of in-group members. They're too trusting. So, yeah.
Okay.
So are you talking in terms of, like predator as in like sexual predator?
Yes, sexual predator, financial predators. I had guys come to me that were creationists, and they wanted to prove that oil could form rapidly, right? So they said, we're going to have these oil wells in the Holy Land, and we're looking for investors to put up $25,000 or something like that. And of course, I said, no. I think the oil people can figure out where oil is. Okay, I don't think you can just read the Bible and say, "Oh, there's oil here."
But they're doing that because there are people who are buying into it, right?
Of course. Yeah, I live in Mormontown. I live in Utah now, and so I see this all the time. Okay, people get
back in here. I need to do something for me.
What was that?
And I think that was a background noise. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Mormon land, Utah is the number one per capita state for financial scams. And it's Mormons victimizing other Mormons. Okay. Multi-level marketing, get rich quick real estate deals, a lot of white collar fraud and crime, which is shocking because, these people are supposed to be the bastions of goodness and light and honesty and all that stuff. But these poor Mormons get ripped off all the time. I see it all the time. So, you know,
I mean, they're kind of primed, right, to be, I guess, exploited. You know, because they're willing to believe things that doesn't comport to reality.
I think believing things that do not comport to reality can give you a boost emotionally. Like, I'd love to believe, oh, yeah, my dad, he's still alive. He's up in heaven. Oh, grandpa's alive. He's in heaven. You know, wow, that feel, you know, I could imagine a 900-pound diamond buried in my backyard. That makes me feel really good. I'm really rich now. But in the long run, it's no good. That's how I feel about it.
That's actually another one of the arguments I particularly find interesting from Christians about us not wanting to become Christians because we want to keep sinning. And you just go, well, look, I don't go about doing all, you know, I don't go and rob people. I don't murder people. I'm happy doing what would be a pretty good life, with just the exception of not believing. So if I went along and believed, it's only upsides for me. So yeah, they just don't get the fact that it's actually a bonus to for a lot of us to become believers, if there was just enough information, just enough evidence to make that happen. But yeah, we don't have a downside. We don't give up our personal identity. We get all the bonuses of, you know, getting to see your family again and getting to live forever and not having to worry about death. You go, what's there not to like, apart from the fact that there's no reason to believe it.
Hmm.
So it's
That's
just the bizarrest argument.
You know, at every point in time in sort of the history of knowledge, when you start off with a definition of, you know, by God, so the flooding of the Nile, the sun chasing the moon, or the moon chasing the sun, or whatever. But at every point in time when we've had an explanation that started out as supernatural, when we've actually studied it and actually followed our curiosity and used that brain of ours, we've come up with an unsupernatural explanation for it every single time. And there's no example. So there are thousands of examples of this, but there are no examples where we start off with a natural explanation and then end up going to a supernatural one. So
it's a little bit like looking at a field of rocks, laying out there and going, there's gold buried under a rock, and I know it's that one. So you go over and dig that one up and you go, oh, no gold under that. Oh, no, sorry, it's that one. And you dig that one up, and how many thousand rocks do you need to dig up before you just go, maybe someone's bullshitting me? There's no gold under any of these rocks.
Yeah, we can actually develop a way of, rather than through chance, we can look for things in a much more systematic way. We can actually ask good questions. We can come up with a methodology to test those questions. And in the end, we realize, okay, either we had a bad assumption, a bad presupposition, or, hey, it looks like this might be pointed in the right direction. But we as a species have been the ones that have facilitated that answer every single time. And there are no examples where a supernatural being has been shown to have given us the answer. There are zero. And so
and
just
also,
go ahead.
No examples of any passage in the Bible that someone's looked at, decided that was a scientific passage, and then demonstrated it to be true.
Right.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, I just read.
That doesn't exist
Go ahead,
either. They post hoc up the thing and say, oh, this thing here was talking about that. And you go, well, isn't it funny no one noticed that until after we discovered it without the Bible?
Well, I mean, it's the whole it's the whole thing about what's his face? Not Nostradamus. Every single one of Nostradamus's so-called prophetic predictions have all been, oh, hey, look, we found where if we had just interpreted this right, we would have seen this coming. And at no point in time has anybody ever started with Nostradamus and been able to predict. It's you're right. It's all post hoc. Every single.
Same with all the Bible code stuff.
Oh yes, well of course. I mean the Bible code stuff is absolutely true. There's I'm trying to remember which one of my math classes it was, but basically, if you have a large enough data set, if you like enough information, you can basically find a code within the data set, whether or not there is an intentional code in the data set. So if you've got something like the Bible or Lord of the Rings, you can eventually, if you throw enough algorithms at it, you will eventually find a pattern, whether or not there is ever a pattern that was intended to be there.
Yeah, I think one of the tests of codes, basically, they went, yeah, if you've got a big enough data set, you can do it on anything. And so they went, right, well, Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Shakespeare, of course.
It worked brilliantly. They could come up with all sorts of predictions that, were basically post hoc.
My personal favorite is, I think it's based on the idea that there's a conspiracy theory, very mild one, that Shakespeare helped write the Bible. And because at the time that it was published, supposedly he was like, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, and I'll go take a look and I'll talk about it next week. But basically, he was supposed to be like 32 years old. So if you go to the 32nd Psalm and you count 32 words in, you get the word shake. And if you start at the end and count 32 words in, you get the word sphere, which is supposedly ironclad proof that Shakespeare helped write the Bible.
The actual answer is going to be a bit more prosaic, because he was mates with a bunch of people who were employed to work on the English translation of the Bible.
Okay.
And so basically the language that he wrote his plays in is basically the same sort of language style that everyone else used for their writing and could write in the KJV version 1. And that's apparently why Shakespeare is so popular, because it's in the same language that the authorized English Bible was in.
Yeah. But Neil, are you familiar with this particular numerological hidden code?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I found it fascinating as a teenager. I don't know if I still have my Dresden book somewhere, but that was just hilarious.
Yeah. Basically, if you throw enough algorithms at a large enough set of data, eventually you will create. It's almost kind of like pareidolia. Once you go with the intention of finding a pattern, you will find a pattern.
Yeah, it's a numerological pareidolia.
It's Psalm 46.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one, and it does contain the words "shake" and "sphere."
Yeah, I mean,
at the beginning and the back.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Therefore, irrefutable proof.
Yep.
Theory confirmed.
Yeah,
Never mind the fact that it could just be a weird coincidence. But yeah, that's one of my favorite little bits of, again, sort of post hoc reasoning.
Well, no, and also there's a site where you can kind of type in any sentence, and it'll find somewhere in the value of pi where
Yes.
you get that sentence.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Including
so,
the complete works of Shakespeare,
yeah, absolutely.
eventually.
By the way, in every possible order.
Yeah.
Because so the thing of it there is that's just nothing more than the fact that pi is an irrational number, so it goes on forever and it never repeats. And so if you assign a value to each number, a letter of the alphabet, then yes, eventually, if you go on forever, it's the infinite it's the infinite monkeys at a typewriter scenario.
Yeah, you're right.
Which, I mean, again, it's fun. I've gone into various websites and I've typed in like my name, I've typed in my social security number, I've typed in my date of birth, I typed in the name of I typed in the name of my first girlfriend and my name forever and ever. I found that in there. That was heartbreaking and sad, but never mind. Like it's just when numbers are fun, and when you know how to play with them, you can do all kinds of things, especially for those that don't understand how numbers work and how numbers interact with them. An example of how to exploit people's ignorance was a survey, a petition that went around my high school my sophomore year. And I'm sure everybody's heard of this one. It was a petition to ban dihydrogen oxide from the school.
Yeah, that stuff will kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
It only takes something like 9 liters of it, and you're done.
Yep. Not only that, it's been found in the brains of every stroke victim. It's been found in the lungs of every drowning victim.
It's found spilled around people mixed with a red dye of everyone who's ever been stabbed.
See? We have to take this stuff out of the schools. And teachers in my high school signed this petition, unironically.
Oy.
And I sat
Well,
there.
I mean, there's a inextricable link. Everyone who's ever had that substance has died or will die.
Yep. Oh, and I can even do you one better. Everybody who's ever confused correlation with causation has died.
Oh.
That's brilliant. I love that. I've got to use that one. Brilliant.
No, please share.
Oh yeah, I'm going to if I can.
I will be 100% transparent. When that one was told to me the first time, I went, wait, huh? And it took a half second. I went, oh my God, yes. So I've made it my life mission to spread that around.
We will whenever we can. I might just
that's
put that on a
hilarious.
t-shirt.
See, Grog, you doing okay back there? We see
Yeah, I'm just hanging out listening.
right on.
This is how it usually goes for us every week.
Just hanging out.
Yeah,
It's a
we go from
fascinating,
topic to topic.
It's easier to believe. You have more of a sense of community in churches, even if it seems fake. Sometimes it's easier for me, I my girlfriend or my fiance, she's her dad was a Baptist minister. I went to her uncle's church, and he was saying a lot of outrageous things. But it was nice to be in a group of people, and they're just kind of hanging out. Religion gives you a sense of community. I think that's why it continues to evolve and change, and it's very difficult to get rid of. Yeah.
And that's probably its greatest power right there.
Sure.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing. Atheism and skepticism, because most people don't think like that, is kind of a lonely road sometimes. I think it's the right road for me, certainly, but it's
we are
It's-
social creatures.
Yeah.
We evolved as pack animals.
Right.
It is. It's as the song says. Sometimes you want to go where everyone knows your name,
Right.
and churches historically have absolutely done that. In that,
Absolutely.
sure, that is absolutely part of the appeal to them. That's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to leave a church, especially like, for example, the church that I went to when I was a small child. I grew up. I was an adult in that church, and when I realized that what they were offering was fraud and farcical, I still, for a long time, was really reluctant to outright leave because these people knew me.
Yes. Yeah. I get that. I do. I think a lot of atheists don't see that, but I do get that.
Oh yeah. So I've talked to the folks before who are sort of coming to their atheism. It's like, but how do I tell these people? Because that's the hardest part. Because you think that they're going to hate you or that you're betraying them somehow. It's,
Right.
I don't want to say it's cultism, because in the sort of current parlance of the word cult, most churches really aren't per se, but that groupthink and that tight knit community, because you're safe as long as you go with the flow. You don't have to worry about anything else bothering you because here's this community that has your back.
Yeah, and nobody ever thinks maybe I picked the wrong deity. See,
Yeah, exactly.
nobody ever says, well, maybe Muslim hell's true, and by sitting in this Baptist church, I'm pissing off Allah. They don't consider that. That's not even part of their mental universe. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, obviously the Muslims have got it wrong because mine is the one true God, and my God has told me that I'm right.
Yeah, I say that a lot on Twitter. I say, Christians can't even agree on which God they're going with here because of the East-West split. In other words, the Trinity, where the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, or through the Son, is different from the Holy Trinity, where the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father alone.
Right, yeah.
That's a different God. Okay. Leibniz, the indiscernibility of identicals. I say, well, so they literally worship a different God. So here's Christianity 2,000 years on, and the biggest groups of Christians do not agree on God. That is really striking.
Yep. It's they don't the 44,000 different sects of Christianity just within the United States alone.
Right.
They don't agree upon the nature of God. They don't agree upon the relationship of God and the Christ character. They don't. Was Jesus God? Was Jesus the Son of God? Was Jesus both the Son and God at the same time? It's is the Holy Trinity. Is the Holy Trinity three separate entities? Is it
Right.
one entity expressed in three different parts? Yeah, and
Right.
just, the list goes on.
Right.
And on.
Right. Yeah. It's. I think a lot of Christians in churches are either Arians, modalists. They have no conception of the Trinity or the Incarnation. Really, it's just this vague kind of, I love this character Jesus in my mind, and he makes me feel good.
Yeah, and that's not
It's
even
gonna-
getting. That's not even getting into the fact that how they try to make agreement between the Old Testament and New Testament God, because really, if you look at it, they're pretty much two different beings.
Yeah.
Well, the Old
Correct.
Testament God is multiple different beings as well. Just the first
Yes.
two chapters
That
of
is true.
Genesis. Those are
Yeah.
two separate beings.
That is true. That is true.
Those are two separate Genesises.
Yes, but you're only going to get that if you actually study the Bible And most
But
Christians,
remember context.
most
Context.
Christians, when I was a Christian, they hardly ever read the Bible, ever, in a serious way. They might have read it devotionally, right? But they're not going to read it in depth, right?
Yeah, not with a
It's-
critical eye, at least.
No.
You're not going to notice the fact that in one it's Yahweh and in the other it's Elohim.
No, you're not going to
Don't
notice
go to that depth.
No.
Yeah, now you're gonna blow their brains up with that.
Oh no.
And you're not going to realize that the text of the New Testament you have is a product of the Enlightenment, okay? In other words, the Bible you have is from textual critical scholars examining manuscripts, thousands and thousands of manuscripts. And it's their reconstruction of the New Testament. It's not, they're guessing at what was written originally. And so, but they just blithely say, well, that's in the Bible, so that's it. I mean,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I love trying to debate guys that say the Bible is the truth and the word. I'm like, how? How is it? Because it's been translated, reproduced, and even the original is not can be considered original anymore because we don't know if it was original to begin with.
well, I don't know what it
Worse
is.
are the
It's
people who are KJVists who will only read the KJV because basically that one's terrifically good if you want the Bible to say anything you want it to say, because it's sort of late Middle English, early modern English, so it's confusing as hell. A lot of the words are different usages to what they are now. There's a lot more euphemistic language, and yeah, as a result, you can skip parts like the abortion in Numbers. You can make that mean anything you want it to out of the language that's in KJV.
Yeah, there's I had a friend that went to a church where they only spoke in church KJV English.
Oh my god!
So they had to
I feel
thee
sorry
and
for you.
thou
For
and
them, whoever it was.
no, I'm serious. This is like, yeah.
I mean, even the KJV English when it was written was not the English at the time.
Right.
I mean,
But it was
remember
very
what-
popular for Shakespeare.
Yeah, I am a
Was right.
yeah, I want to go to a snake handling church in West Virginia. That's what I want to do.
Oh,
I think this
that
stuff's
would be
cool.
interesting.
So the
Yeah,
problem
I'm
with
just
so the
saying.
problem with the reason why the snake handler church doesn't grow as much is because the Bible talks about be fruitful and multiply, and the snakes, those are adders.
Yeah, well, I can see
But
why.
Kush.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, handling snakes.
God.
Handling
Right,
snakes might limit the growth of a church. That's true. I can
Yes.
see that.
No, adder is a kind of adder is a kind of snake. Now I will say this, that if you hi Blarg. No, that is again one of the best examples of just con artistry at work. The spectacle of it, the pomp and circumstance of it, but they'll drain the snake ahead of time so that way it doesn't have it doesn't have any venom in it, or it has so little in it. Also, you've got folks that have been handling snakes for years and years and years, and so they've built up an immunity to the snake venom. That's another way that they pull the scam. But if you're looking for, if you're looking for a really cool show, then Snake Handlers. It's pomp and circumstance. I will give it that.
We were driving through West Virginia, and I wanted to go when my late wife, we were going down there with the kids down in Florida. I said, "Hey, let's go to that snake handler church over here near Wheeling or something." She goes, "Hell no, I'm going to a snake handling church.
Yep.
What are you, crazy?" So yeah,
Like there's the if you just look at it from a showmanship perspective, then snake handlers are absolutely mesmerizing. A lot of charismatic preachers, certainly can sway a crowd. I mean, from a purely melody perspective, there are a lot of great, really fun gospel songs that are fun to sing.
absolutely true.
Yeah. So it's so again, if you don't buy into the message, at least you can have fun appreciating the theater of the mode of the message.
Yeah, my favorite preacher that I've seen, I had a lot of favorites when I was a Calvinist, but mostly hellfire preachers. But Robert Tilton, man, he's the best. Robert Tilton is the best. I mean, he is so good. It's like just such bullshit. I mean, it's just like, in my heart, I hear your voice, Lord. It's like, wow, it's awesome.
So that's that.
If I was a psychopath,
right.
I could start a church. I'd have 500 members.
Oh
in 6
yeah.
months.
Again,
If I was a psychopath, it'd be so easy. It wouldn't.
Well,
even
and that's what I mean. Look at people like Jim Jones, David Koresh. God, I'm blanking on his name, but the wackadoodle that carved the swastika on his head died in prison.
Oh,
yeah, Charlie Manson.
Manson, yeah. Charlie Manson. Just insanely charismatic.
People are very gullible, and if I don't want to monopolize the conversation here, but in Mormonville, we had a huge scandal recently. Well, over the last couple of years, there was some goofball that wrote a book called Visions of Glory. He's a Mormon bishop, and he had a near-death experience, and he experienced, all these weird paranormal events and the end times and all this bullshit. And so these people took up this mantle of this, and it's a famous case in Utah. They did a Netflix series on it called Sins of the Mother, and she killed this woman, Lori Vallow. She killed her husband. She killed her 2 kids. This lover she had killed his wife because they said they were demon possessed, and they were freeing them from these demons, this darkness. See, this is the cuckoo, shit that if you take this stuff seriously, you can get into.
Yeah.
So
It's one thing if you're going to mumble to yourself on the subway. It's another when you start killing people.
I think the FBI definition of a serial killer is if you kill 2 people over a certain, period of time, over like 3 months or something. Well,
it has to do with the methodology, and it has to do with the methodology of the killing as well as the frequency of it. Also, your own mental state.
Right.
There are a couple of different factors involved. Please don't ask me why I know that.
Yeah. Well, over a period of 6 months, they kill 2 kids and 2 adults. Okay. So, I mean, that's because, and allegedly it's because of their wacko religious beliefs. It was a big scandal in Utah. Big scandal. So, yeah.
There's all,
It's crazy. It's fascinating how people can be taken in and just taken over by these ideas, and to their real detriment. And unfortunately I see it with anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists, all over Twitter, or X. It's crazy. And that is the downside of these kind of crazy beliefs, these unevidenced religious beliefs.
I feel like on Twitter, if you wanted to create a large account or get a large account, I think if you like create a very Christian account and constantly like post it about Jesus and kind of getting people to agree with you and say amen and all that, and maybe like with what Darwin to Jesus does with his memes, I think you can make it a large account pretty quickly. And same
If
thing
you're a
with
really cute
anti-vax.
girl, that helps too.
That's
Yeah,
true.
Yeah,
that as well.
That
If you're a
does.
really cute girl, that you will get. There's that girl. She's an ex-Instagram model or whatever the hell it is. I don't even know what it is. OnlyFans, and she's a Christian. Within a month on YouTube, she's got 250,000 subs. I mean, it's like,
Well, if you're willing to go the extra
kidding
mile,
me?
Yep. So so part of the reason why cults are so effective. Let's go back to what we were talking about before about how it gives you that sense of certainty, that sense of predictableness. You know, you've outloaded your identity, you've outloaded your responsibility. I don't need to worry about what to wear. I don't need to worry about what to eat. I don't need to worry about what to read. I don't need to worry about who to talk to. You know, these are all things that if I get wrong, people might think badly of me. They might point and laugh at me. But here in this group, I'm never wrong. When you mix that with the brain's inability sometimes to take on too much information at once, if you can bombard the brain and take up the bandwidth that it can process other bits of information, you can create a feedback loop in someone's mind where they only think about what you tell them to think about. And it makes it very difficult, if not nearly impossible, for the brain to actually absorb any new information. So that's why cults are so efficient at the information part of the BITE model, because if they can control the information, they can control what you're thinking. And once they do that, the rest is easy for them.
yeah, but
Well,
they get complacent and they're good. They got you where they want you.
Well, it's easy to fall into that too, because let's face it, almost any group you're in religiously is going to be a subset, right? So it's a minority faith. And so you got to say, well, there's a special reason why we're in the minority. It's because of this vast satanic conspiracy that's controlling everybody, right?
Yep.
It's like, I have Mormon friends. Oh my God, they said, Satan rules the world. He's the God of this world, and that's why we can't find evidence for the Book of Mormon because Satan's hiding it and all this other crazy shit. I mean, it's like, really, wow.
I love how convinced a lot of them are that the serial philanderer and narcissistic liar in chief is the person who's going to bring God back to America.
Oh yeah.
And you just go, and then you go, oh, mysterious ways and likes, and you just go, what are you talking about? Like Biden was the person who went to church and actually appeared to genuinely believe. Trump doesn't even know which way to hold the Bible up.
Yeah, it's become a cult, really. I have a confession. This shows you how you can evolve in your thinking. I supported Trump in 2016, and I was a big supporter of Trump. I worked a lot of hours for Trump, but I became disillusioned as I saw that he would make these promises to these people, a lot of them evangelical Christians, and then he just completely dissed them. He didn't do any of the stuff he said he was going to do.
Sure.
And yet they still thought he was just the greatest thing ever. I did not vote for Trump this time. Obviously, I voted Green Party, but I just there's a lot of cultism in the Trump movement. I noticed that.
Sure.
And a lot of conspiratorial thinking. Did you know Michelle Obama's a woman? And did you know Lori's a satanic lesbian? And they're drinking baby blood. I used to hear this shit all the time. I go,
well, the adrenochrome, yeah.
Yeah, I said, man, that's pretty far out there, man. I don't know.
Here's the funny thing about that specific chemical is it's trivially easy for a chemist to manufacture just from straight chemistry. And you just go, so why would you go to the hassle of extracting it?
Well,
you can
it's
produce
the
it by the
secret.
ton.
It needs to be.
It's
It
the
needs to be
secret
fresh.
sauce, see?
Yeah, but you can make
It,
it
needs
fresh.
it needs that taste of life to it. Like it needs to be from a real thing,
Yeah.
not just made.
Because
Yeah.
you know,
I mean-
ain't nothing like the real thing, baby.
I mentioned earlier about I saw a fun story this week about Trump's brain fart on Monday that turned into a debacle on Tuesday. Was just priceless. So whether you saw it or not, he went over to the Kennedy Center and decided they're all too woke, so fired everyone and declared himself the chairman of the board there, and he's going to appoint new people so that they can get better better arts and the likes. But while he's roaming around the Kennedy Center, he's declared that they're releasing all of the Kennedy assassination files with 0 redactions, and that's happening tomorrow.
That's
So that was
bullshit, too.
Monday.
Yeah.
So on Tuesday, the National Archives did exactly what he told them to do: release all of the Kennedy files with no redactions. Turned out that pretty well every single page that got released had already been released, so there was no new information to be found anyway. The only thing that was found in the redactions were people's birth dates, names, and social security numbers. So he docked the social security numbers.
I feel like that was like someone's malicious compliance.
That's
okay,
exactly
you don't
what
want.
I think.
Yes,
You
yes,
bet.
yes.
Yeah.
Malicious compliance. I like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because in amongst it was one of his lawyers as well. And on Wednesday, the White House issued a directive to go through the data that had been released and look for personal information. You go, probably should have had those two around the other way. Because yeah, that was basically all that was missed was the redactions were personal information. So now they've made an order that they've got to go and create new social security numbers for 400 people, and then go to all the hassle of trying to, your social security numbers linked to all of your credit history and everything. And you just go, now how do you get your credit history back and connected to the new stuff? So yeah, brain fart on Monday, debacle on Tuesday, and he's been trying to clean up the shit ever since. Brilliant.
Cut in
This-
waste. Yeah.
This man is not a deep thinker. He never has been. I've known people that were in the real estate business in New York and Jersey and know the guy, and he's just a bully. He's very surface level. He's not a reader. He's not a thinker. And if you pour honey in his ear, you can tell him whatever you want. And if you're the last person to speak to him on an issue, then that's what he absolutely will believe.
Yeah.
The man is almost a perfect embodiment of the id.
Yeah, I became disillusioned with it, just like I became disillusioned with Christianity, because I saw that, number one, he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. Number two, and this is one of the main reasons I didn't vote for him. I can tolerate almost any position on any subject, but nuclear war and war in general, I want to avoid wars. I don't like wars. I think people make a lot of money off of them, and they're all these wars. One of these days, it's gonna go third world war, and then all this bullshit is academic. I mean, I just think that people don't really realize that, you have to have people that are serious that are doing this kind of work. You can't have these amateur night stuff and Paula White's praying about it or some bullshit like that.
and
This
strike
this is
and
very
strike and
serious
strike
thing.
and strike.
Great. And yeah,
Yeah,
good.
literally, the world could end in 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
you're playing a game
So-
of Risk.
Yeah, and these Christians, well, that Jesus will come back and rescue us all. So what the hell? This is
Ugh.
great. I mean, so that's another extreme danger of religious thinking, that you're not really mortal. You're not really mortal. So if everything is destroyed, well, hey, I'll just be in heaven. And it's terrible.
Yeah, tell that
So-
to the millions of faceless people that get destroyed in the process.
Sure. But that's
Yeah.
why
It's also one of the reasons why the death penalty is just fine in general with religious people, is because it's that whole kill them all and let God sort it out. If you kill the wrong person, it doesn't matter. He was innocent. He's going to heaven. You didn't do him a harm. Sort of a thing.
Well,
Too
that's a
bad if you're wrong.
contradiction in Christian beliefs. See, that I try and emphasize that when I'm on X is if you should be pro-abortion if you're a Christian, because all those embryos, those babies, they all go to heaven instantly to be with Jesus, and if they grow up to be adults,
about to say
there's a very good chance they're going to go to hell. Very good.
Yeah, 'cause
Narrow
there's
is the
only
way. Straight is the
144,000 people.
path. So it's a contradictory idea. It shows you that it's like a reductio on the salvation plan of Christianity.
Yeah, nobody should be crying at a funeral. They should be cheering.
So what do you guys think of that argument? It's not original to me, by the way. So
no,
what do you think?
it's actually it's rather clever because it does also the other thing that you can use to kind of back up that argument is, well, this was all part of God's plan.
Exactly. It's God's mercy.
Yeah, exactly. And can you prove that it wasn't a part of God's plan?
Well, if you're a Calvinist, you have to say it's part of God's plan, right? Everything's a part of God's plan. I mean,
Yeah,
But-
that's the default position of any Christian, really.
My brother is a conservative Catholic. I think the next chance I get, I'm going to bounce that one off of him and see what happens.
well, in old-timey Catholics used to be much meaner. They said infants who were not baptized, they go directly to hell. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, they were more consistent about it. Now they're like, well, they've eliminated limbo, so they're actually going to heaven. So limbo's out. So there you go. I mean, I think the Catholic Church in its current form is tending more and more towards universalism, frankly, because they've become humanized, right?
Yep,
they're
that's true.
they're more humane. See, they're not into these crazy theological ideas, and that's why these Orthodox and these people, they hate them. They hate them because they say, well, you're not hardcore enough, and you don't hate gay people enough, and yeah.
The Catholic Church has been going through a bit of an identity crisis for a while now, and they've been watching their numbers dwindle. And from an ideological perspective, you have to wonder, if your numbers are shrinking, what are you doing wrong in the messaging that you're putting out? I'm a bit more cynical. The reason why you've been seeing such a shift in some of the church's doctrine is because they've been seeing their donations go down. Since they don't want to lose all that sweet tax-free money, then they have to figure out, okay, well, what do we need to say and how do we pivot so that we can get people back into the pews and putting money in the coffer again?
What's
Exactly.
the
I
hard
think,
right?
I
What's the
think
hard
not
right?
letting the priests molest the kids, that might be like a
That's also, yeah, I mean, that's a good start.
There you go.
Wait for the hard
That's why
right
they've been
turn when
losing
the
money.
current pope dies, and
yeah.
the next pope, you can guarantee they're going to go hard right with that choice.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's going to sort of reflect the shift into kind of the Trumpianism that's happening right throughout the world.
Yeah, and the dislike of the guy who was just too friendly and too liberal for their liking.
Yeah.
Well,
I think this.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say the problem is you have women that have a say in this stuff now too. That when it was just men that ran these churches, you there's a lot more push toward these kind of sadistic, crazy beliefs. You like babies going to hell, and unbaptized infants going to hell, and things like that. With women now, it's tougher. It's tougher to sell women on that stuff. It's tough, and they influence
it's
a lot of
always
religious
the
choices.
problem is always with the women. I agree with you on that.
I'm just
There you
saying.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm saying that the women are more sensible about these things than some of these guys are, and they don't like the idea of little babies burning eternally in hellfire. That doesn't sell with them. And I don't care what anybody says. If a woman doesn't want to go to a church, and that generally speaking, the man is not going to fight that. Okay. I'm telling you, I was married for 33 years. So, if you're going to be
No, I
fighting,
get what you're saying, and I think again part of the difficulty that churches in general are having now is with social media being more and more prevalent now than even when it was 10, 15 years ago. The ability to disseminate information, to cross-reference information, to actually search for things has created, paradoxically, the most informed human population of all time, but also the more intellectually tribalistic species of all time. So that once we find the answer that we're looking for, then if we don't keep ourselves open to conflicting information, then you end up with a Dunning-Kruger effect, and you can just keep reinforcing that for yourself.
True.
And that's the paradox of it all.
Yep.
All right. Well, T-Grog, we normally try to do hour and 30, but we generally do go past that, and we have done it this time as around.
Been
as
fun,
well.
guys. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, I definitely appreciate having you come on. And of course, my thanks to the panel.
Yeah.
And Craig, thanks for showing up. I know you missed a lot of it, but it's always good to have you here. And thank you for rest of you on the live chats.
Yep.
So I hope you enjoyed this.
Again, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks all you guys. You guys were great.
No,
Yeah,
of course,
thanks.
you're
And
too.
he's kind of always, he and I are interacting on Twitter a lot. So we probably can have him come on again. But for next week, I do have someone else from Twitter lined up. It'll be kind of more of a light discussion. But it'll be fun. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And with that, with that, I will say goodbye and thank you, everyone. And I'll see you in the comments.
Bye. Don't forget the.
Bye.